Rockhound here. Automaton have dropped a short 16-second teaser video on Twitter showing some snippets of Mavericks Proving Grounds first-person perspective handgun animations and gunplay, as well as some footage of animators working with a motion capture suit. Let's take an in-depth look at what was shown, including some side-by-side comparisons with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and Battlefield 1 handgun animations, and then I'll provide you a couple of other updates about Mavericks as well. The teaser opens with a shot of a USP lookalike 45 caliber handgun. Now I would expect that for some guns Automaton will pay manufacturers for the license to use the weapons in-game, but for others, like the USP, they'll just create their own lookalike copies, either to save cost or because they couldn't obtain the license to use the image of the specific weapon. Now you'll notice that this gun has been given the fictitious manufacturer name of Johnson & Taylor, with the JT logo shown in a couple of places, JT also being the initials of Automaton CEO James Thompson, so perhaps a nice little nod to the boss there from the weapons artists. As well as the usual option to add a suppressor to this weapon, it also has a rail on it, so you could actually add a laser or even a light to it as well. I really like the slightly film noir lighting used here, and this may be the overall presentation style of weapons that we could expect to see at the gun range that will be located in the capital, which is Mavericks' social hub. The capital won't be in Mavericks the Forge when it first launches, but it will be introduced down the track prior to full launch of the game. We then see our first in-game FPP animation of the handgun, showing us an inspect weapon animation, which I'm really pleased to see. If we're going to be earning weapon skins through progression or purchasing them, we definitely want to be able to take a look at the skin in-game. In this position we see the back of the character's hand really well, and this is probably my only significant negative about the animation shown in the video. The analogy I use to describe the way I think about how the hand looks is that it has too much Pierce Brosnan and not enough Daniel Craig. Now watch these two scenes and hopefully you'll get what I mean. Just like Daniel Craig's Bond, I imagine that the characters of Mavericks Proving Grounds have a pretty hard life, and I reckon their hands should reflect that narrative. I'd really like to see more dirt, more scars, and maybe even a bit of dried blood on their hands to match that tough Isle of Doom lifestyle. To compare, here's an image from Battlefield 1 of the character's hand holding a handgun, and you can see that the hand looks a little more rugged and has a scar on it as well. So I do hope that the devs add a little more Daniel Craig and a little less Pierce Brosnan to the Mavericks characters. Right, before we leave this shot, also note how good the hazy lighting of the environment looks in the background. The video then moves on to the animators working on some motion capture footage. This may have just been set up for the teaser because they're actually working in Automaton's new office, which the devs plan to move into in a month or so. We then see just under a couple of seconds of the character running through the forest with their handgun. Now let's compare the animation side by side with the same animation from Battlefield 1 and PUBG. The Mavericks animation looks like the weapon is held more like the Battlefield one, which I prefer because you can see the whole weapon, but the movement is quite confined, more like PUBG. I'd perhaps like to see the hand move around a little more, but probably not as much as the Battlefield 1 animation. We then get our first glimpse of FPP gunplay, with our character firing upon another character who is running away. We can see several things here. Firstly, the muzzle flash is quite varied from shot to shot, and not too large that it interferes with our view. There is also more smoke generated from the weapon than we see in PUBG, which has a minor amount, or Battlefield 1, which pretty much has none. The smoke also seems to hang in the air as a tight cloud, which I don't think looks particularly realistic, but I do think it looks better than both PUBG and Battlefield, both of which don't really show enough smoke. Now our character actually misses most of the initial shots until we see a hit marker shown here. So there will be hit markers more like Battlefield shown, which does add a slightly more arcade feel to the game, but this could actually be quite a nice blend with the overall gunplay actually being more on the realistic side. Of course, these things can be easily tweaked as we go through the forge part of the game. Additionally, the character's hand grip on the weapon could be a slight point of contention for some people, with the supporting left hand being held too far down the grip to provide maximum stability. You see here in this PUBG animation that the left hand is held higher in a more supportive position, which would help to reduce recoil. Both of these are better than the Battlefield animation though, which just shows a very casual one-handed grip. However, it could be added into Mavericks gameplay that as you progress and spend more time on the in-game gun range, for instance, that your grip improves as a progression item and provides you with slightly less recoil as a result. That aside, I think that from the small amount we've seen from the Mavericks gun animations so far, they look close to being on a par with PUBG and Battlefield, which is awesome considering that animations will still go through further iterations during the Forge when the game is first tested by those who purchased Founders Packs. Let me know what you think about the animations in the comments below. Okay, in addition to the teaser footage that was released, the devs have also had 2 AMAs on Reddit in the last 2 weeks, the first one by Automaton's CEO James Thompson, and the second one by the game's lead artist Stuart Bugg. There wasn't a huge amount of new information provided in the AMAs, however, but new info of note included that James confirmed that 3 guns will be in the game at the start of the Forge, and they will be the USP, which we've just seen, an AK-47 rifle, and an Ithaca 37 shotgun, which is probably a pistol grip style gun, as we've seen the symbol for that on a recent image of the new UI. James also said that they'll be doing more videos that include gameplay before launch, and based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks in Twitter videos, I suspect that we might see quite a lot more gunplay sooner rather than later. As far as PC specs go, he said that their target is 60 FPS on a GTX 1060 in the earliest builds, with more optimization from that point going forward. He also noted that modding support or a level editor is a significant area of focus for Mavericks after its full launch, which is sure to be an exciting announcement for a lot of people. James also said that the team had set aside 2 months to complete the required work on the analytics data tools that they need in order to be 110% confident that they won't have to delay access to the game again. In Stuart Bugg, the lead artist's AMA, he gave us a definitive time period that Mavericks is set in, being 30 years into the future, and mentioned that this allows them to embellish characters and the environment with some futuristic tech ideas, while not going too over the top with them. He also mentioned that they're currently working through ways for members of each faction to identify fellow faction members, even if they're dressed like another faction, which was a potential issue that I had mentioned in a previous video. He added that the 5th faction, which was originally called the Capital Forces, is still in the game and, like the other 4 factions, continues to be worked on. Stuart was asked if ghillie suits would be in the game, but said at this stage they won't be because they found it too hard to balance them within gameplay. It'll be interesting to see if they change their minds about this down the track. Stuart also wrote about how the Isle of Down, while being based on Scotland and Northern England, is actually mostly based on Scotland's Isle of Skye, because in Stuart's words, it's a stunningly beautiful landscape that offers a massive amount of scope for a huge variety of gameplay. Lastly, there was a blog update made in the Founders section of the Mavericks forum recently, and while I won't share all the details and images shown in that with you, because Founders get a week's exclusive access to it, what I can say is that it was mentioned that there will be 40 firearms to choose from in the game down the track, and there was even mention of rocket launchers, so there's definitely going to be plenty of ways to create your own havoc in the game. Okay, that wraps up my analysis of the latest video and also the latest news updates, As I mentioned before, I suspect we're not too far away from seeing some more substantial gameplay, as it's been mentioned a few times by the devs, and we're certainly well due for it, so stay tuned for that. If you found this video helpful, please consider leaving a like or a dislike if you didn't. It all helps. And if you'd like to see more videos from me, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.
Full moon